Hi, this is Emily from the Children's Literature Training Academy. I'm going to tell you today all about these two fantastic books by Roald Dahl, The Magic Finger and The Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I want to talk about these books because they're both a little bit controversial. I have very mixed opinions about them. So if you're a parent, there are some warnings I want to put in for these books for you. But also, if you are a teacher or homeschooling parent and are interested in curriculum ideas, I'm going to give you some of those as well. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about and study the thematic elements in this book. So I do have some other videos where I talk a lot about Roald Dahl's work. I'll link those below, including some of his box sets, which is what I pulled these books out of. But let's first talk about the fantastic Mr. Fox. Now, this book was written in 1970, way before I was born. And I have to say that it shocked me a little bit. So the first thing I want to say about Roald Dahl, when you're reading his books, especially these short little stories, the sort of tone you get from his style of writing is a fable sort of storytelling tone. Now, obviously, every book is a story, but what I'm saying is, as you're reading it, you can kind of get the feeling like you're sitting around a campfire or you're tucked in bed at night and someone is telling you this story. It sort of has that sort of once upon a time, listen to this interesting kind of quirky story I'm making up as I go kind of a feel. So that's what I like about Roald Dahl. Very creative, genius man. I'm not real thrilled about the themes in here, so I want to give a little heads up. Both of these books, if you're a vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based, and so are your kids, these books have a lot of killing of animals and eating them in these books. I just want to warn you. Also, we see in both books, we see shotguns, guns, and rifles, which is not something you'd see a lot of today in younger children's books like these. So that's just a little heads up. So in The Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's really interesting. The way I describe this book thematically is it's kind of like survival of the fittest, and it's sort of a symbolic of the war between human mammals and other types of mammals as far as the stronger species wins. And it starts out with three men who are hunters. They're trying to catch and kill a fox in this beautiful forest in these woods, and they're trying to get this pesky fox. They're chasing him with guns and they're chasing with rifles. They trap him in this hole, and they're not real smart guys, so they're kind of coming up with these sort of silly ways how they're going to catch and kill, they use the word several times, this fox. And so, but most of the book is seen from the perspective of the fox underground with his fox wife and fox children. And that's what we see in a lot of Roald Dahl's books. His animals have human-like qualities. They talk and act as if they are human beings. And so, and it just got really sunny in here all of a sudden. So the fox, you see, they start starving underground. They run out of water because they know if they come out of that hole, they're going to get killed. They're going to get shot. And that's, they have conversations about that. There are scenes in here also when they show throughout the book the foxes killing and eating chickens. Also, we see the three men killing animals and eating them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's funny. It's like it's done in this cute sort of fantasy fairy tale childlike way, but it's also some kind of serious adult underlying themes you kind of see in this book, which I think is really interesting. And so the fox and his fox family have to outwit these three men, and they win the battle. They come up with a way to dig these underground tunnels to the intention of the three men is to starve out these foxes. Eventually they'll get hungry or thirsty enough, then they'll pop out, and then these hunters are going to kill them. And so the foxes underground decide they're going to dig tunnels every which way. And what they do is they dig their way up to where they pop up in three different storehouses of these humans' houses or barns, these three men's where they live, where they have their underground like food stores. They're jars full of fruits and vegetables, and I think there's quote cider. We all know what cider probably stands for in there. That was weird. My hand is doing something weird. And so they end up meeting other animals along the way, a badger and some other underground animals, and they discuss, they end up meeting with these animals. They start taking food from all the food stores of the men that are trying to kill them above the hole, which these humans are not smart. They don't realize that maybe there's another way out for these foxes, right? So they're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And these foxes are underground just just digging tunnels every which way, and they dig right up underground of these men's houses and start stealing their food stores, getting into their chicken coops, bringing stuff back down, and then they have this big banquet and this big feast, and then it's all this sort of braggadocious how smart and clever this main fox is, who it was his idea to do this, and all these animals have this underground feast, and it's kind of like a celebration of animals outwitting humans, being smarter than humans, and surviving, finding a way to survive. So I really think that I mean, and then the book ends, of course. Well, I don't want to give a total spoiler. It's not exactly a high, thick suspense novel, but obviously the animals win the battle. And but the whole sort of theme of the book is the survival of the fittest and the cleverness and instinct to survive that animals could have, which I think is really kind of interesting. And I did write down. Oh no, that's the other book. So there's a lot of things you can do with this book if you want to do some language arts or some group activities with children in the classroom or at home with this book. I'm going to include a link below to a PDF that has some extracurricular activities you can do in groups with using this book if it's appropriate to read to your child or student or the group or the class. And sure enough, you can do an art activity where after reading the book with the children, you can have the children make a map underground of the map, because the whole book is shown these foxes make this underground world of tunnels, and they go to this room and they go to that room and they go to this house underground and this house. And there's this whole sort of, you can imagine this underground a wave of maze of tunnels that pop up in these different places. And so you can have your children draw and design a map of the underground world of the foxes. That would be one really good one. And you can also have your child choose to be one of the different animals that are shown living underground trying to survive, and do research on that animal, write a report on that animal as far as what is the animal's habitat, what does the animal eat, what does the animal do, what kind of resources needed to survive. And then there's the underlying theme of resources in this book, as well as the shortage of resources and survival animals with resources as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the magic finger. The magic finger isn't that different. The story is different, but I sense a lot of detestment of humans coming from the author of how humans treat animals in this book. Now, I can't say I would know about Roald Dahl being Scandinavian, I guess it was, and having been in the military and living when he did, being a vegetarian. I mean, I've never read any mention of that. But I've seen this theme in many of his books about how he hates how humans treat and eat and kill animals, which you'll see even more so in the magic finger. And so, and I'm hearing this really loud engine outside my library here window. So I don't know what's going on out there. So let's just ignore that. So I just wanted to have you check that out. You can do a lot of language arts activities with this. You can ask your child, you can pose heavy topics with a child as far as appropriateness of should you hunt and kill animals that are being problematic to your garden, or getting into your chicken coop, what would be a better way to handle it. There's a lot of situational brainstorming type cognitive development skills you can do with children as well. But overall, the book was, I think it was written like it's meant to be a comedy, kind of comedic, but because the three humans, the men in this book, are just supposed to be complete morons. And it is kind of funny, but it's a little bit stereotypical. I guess there's some stereotyping in there, is what I wanted to say about that. And I also thought, yeah, animal profiling. I wrote down some ideas for activities as I was reading the book. Animal profiling, about diet, habitat, survival. You can do storyboarding and plotting, writing scene to scene to scene in the book, the unfolding of events, story sequencing. There's a lot you can do. But let's get in and just talk about the magic finger. This book was really interesting. The magic finger, and that book was in the 1966. Yeah, I had to double check my resource. 1966. This one was technically written before Fantastic Mr. Fox. So Magic Finger is interesting. It's about a little girl who is kind of on the outside witnessing this sequence of events. It's not really about her, but the story is kind of like told like it's from her perspective. It starts out, my name is so and so, I'm a little girl, I live next door too. She lives next door to this family that has a couple of boys. And it starts out very strongly from the very first couple of pages as she watches this father and the boys go hunting to, and they're killing ducks or killing geese or killing pigeons or birds or deer. Yeah, there's a scene where they're killing a deer, dragging a deer back, and she makes point blank the statement, I hate hunting. I can't describe why. I hate people who go hunting and kill animals, yada yada. And so she gets enraged, and when she gets enraged, her finger turns to magic. Her finger turns into some like this red hot rod of electricity that like almost like a wand she can point out, and she can alter matter. So they show a scene where a teacher had ticked her off, and she did the magic finger on the teacher and turned the teacher into like a cat, you know, with a fuzzy tail and whatnot. And then she decides she doesn't like this family next door, how they're killing animals. So she decides to do the magic finger on them, and she turns them all into birds. She gives them all wings. Well, they still have I think a human body, but then they grow like wings. So they lose their arms. They wake up without their arms and they have wings instead, and now they're on the ground and they're now being hunted. So then they also show this family of large human-sized ducks that invade their house and start cooking, and the ducks take all of the hunting guns down, and the ducks start hunting the human family who now have wings. So the human family has to crawl up a tree and live in a tree, build a nest to survive. And the ducks are, it's kind of like the whole theme of this book is role reversal, humans versus animals, and give the humans a taste of their own medicine, right? So the ducks are now with the large guns at the bottom of the tree pointing up, getting ready to shoot them, and the family is begging and pleading for their lives. I'm sorry, we'll never hunt you again, sorry we did that, yada yada yada. And the whole story is kind of told like the girl is watching it all happen and she's highly pleased with herself, you know. So she's like the one that goes in there and teaches people a lesson of morality, of right and wrong. And it's very clear that this girl, which is obviously the author, Roald Dahl, who has a very strong opinion about humans killing animals, I have to conclude, and humans eating animals. So it's so clear to me in a couple of these books. And if you've read some of his other books, The Witches, for example, James and the Giant Peach, The Twits, some of his other books, and I've talked about this in a few of my other videos, I believe, Roald Dahl had a serious, I guess you could say, it's clear in his books, a problem with some female authority figures. I guess he poses like the terrible witch in The Witches. In several of his books, he has female authoritarian figures posed as nasty and terrible who need to be punished, who need to be turned into creatures, who need to be locked away. He poses them as witches. Actually, in The Magic Finger, it's referred to the word witchcraft several times. This is witchcraft. This girl is turning people into witches. So I think Roald Dahl's books have a lot of room for interpretation, for studying the psychology of the writer, which I think is really interesting because he has so many books. And when you have an author that has that many books and you've read them all, you can start to see themes. You can start to uncover patterns. You can start to detect the writer always comes out in the writings, because I'm an author and I'm a writer and I can say that for a fact. So you can see clearly, like, these stories start in his mind, right? But they derive from his own, yes, imagination and creativity, but thoughts, values, morals, opinions, experiences he's had. So it's very clear he has a problem with some female authority figures, and he's probably was treated badly by a woman as a child. And you can also tell that he has a strong opinion about humans treating animals badly, and seeing animals as innocent creatures who need to be protected and respected like a valuable part of the planet, as equal in their rights as humans, is what I detect when I read his books. So they're lighthearted little stories, but they have big meanings. And, there's a whole picture here. Here's one picture here. I don't know if you can see this, of the hunting with the gun. We have the picture of, so I can find it here. There's quite a few pictures. Here we have the picture of all of the ducks with their guns pointing up at the humans in the tree. So there's a lot of, I mean, if you're really anti-gun, you're a parent or a grandparent, these might not be the Roald Dahl books you want to choose, unless you want to introduce that as a topic of conversation to let a child make up his or her own mind about the use of guns and using guns on animals, writing essays or opinion-based essays or discussions on hunting for sport, hunting for pleasure, hunting for survival or food, how animals should be treated, respecting wildlife. Roald Dahl grew up in Buckinghamshire in a beautiful woodland forest, and so a lot of his books, like these two books in particular, are written in that surrounding. And he used to tell his children stories about little foxes under trees and all these different animals, because he grew up in the forest around all these animals. And so um, I do think he's a genius writer, but again, there's a lot of room for interpretation. As far as other activities for the magic finger, I'll have a couple of more PDFs I can include links to below. You can use in the classroom if you like. But role reversal is a really interesting topic in this book. It's teaching a lesson by putting yourself in the other person's shoes, reversing roles. And you can have children, if you're trying to teach concepts from this book, do role reversals. Put your children in the teacher role. You become the student, let your child teach something. Or have your child reverse roles with someone else in the house who normally does a certain job or duty, and have your child reverse roles with that person, and discuss what it might be like, because this is a lesson in empathy. It's a lesson in having respect and appreciation for what others might go through or have to do or be a part of. So that's really a good opportunity to use this book for teaching role reversal. There's tons of different birds showed all through this book, different kinds of birds of all shapes and colors and descriptions. So you can do a unit on birds. You can talk about birds, what kind of birds live in the forest. You can have your child write, draw, write, or research the kind of birds that exist in England, in Buckinghamshire, and come up with some of the birds that are native to that area, do a profile, find a photo, write up a little essay. You can have your child draw a forest of birds. There's a lot of things you can do with these books. I can't particularly say how much I enjoyed reading them, because ironically for children's books, the themes really did bother me. And I don't think there are many children's books that I say that about. But then again, I have been vegetarian my whole life. And so I wouldn't have not allowed my children to read them, but if I'm just having discussions with them about that, and depending on how I pose the discussions. So I think it's important to let children make up his or her own mind and develop his or her own ethics, morals, and values through witnessing the behavior of others and life experiences. But I think that these are not the books of Roald Dahl that I like the best, just being honest, although they are very clever and in some ways mildly humorous. Some might find as well, and very well written, I definitely have to say. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of the books if you get a chance to read them. And if there are any other Roald Dahl books you'd like to see reviewed, drop me a comment below and I will make it happen.